We are ready to go. So I'm going to start the monthly market report. And as always, I just encourage you guys to screenshot anything that you want to keep. I will also drop a link to the slides. So while we're watching this, I'll drop that link to the slides so that you have it. I have not listened to it ahead of time. Sometimes I do. I haven't this time. It should be a good one. We've got David. He's going to give it today. So I will share my screen here.
Let's go ahead and get started. All right. Bill McBride said this. He said, with recent house price increases, some people are worried about a new housing bubble. But mortgage debt isn't a concern, and lending standards are much better now than the bubble. So let's talk about this for just a minute. You know, Bill McBride, we've always followed him, does a great job with the calculated risk blog. But I think this topic of debt is going to come up more and more. You know, the national debt, or the deficit, they would call it, is higher than ever before. Consumer debt is higher than ever before. And people sort of look at, you know, housing and go, okay, how does that all sort of impact you know, the future of the housing market, and get a little scared, honestly. And so if we kind of focus in on the housing piece of this, and this came up last month in the monthly market report, when we started to talk about, is the market going to crash? I use this slide right here, and it shows consumer debt and how it's at a record level in this country, almost $18 trillion in consumer debt. And that's everything from home equity lines to auto loans to credit cards to student loans. Oh, by the way, mortgages make up the big portion of that. And people start to get concerned, right? If you take that picture right here, excuse me, mortgage debt is almost $13 trillion in this country, and makes up about 75% of consumer debt. And people get worried. You know, if you look at that line just right here, $13.1 trillion in mortgage debt. Well, here's what they miss in that sort of thought, is that there's 35 trillion in equity in homes across this country. So very, very strong. And I think that strength is going to play out in a number of different ways in home ownership in the coming years. And already is playing out in a couple of different ways. We're going to talk about that in just a minute with foreclosures. But no doubt there's a tremendous amount of equity in homes across the country, which is giving strength to the real estate market. And now, while national debt's out of control, consumer debt's higher than it's ever been before, there is strength in the housing market. And that's the point that I would be very comfortable with as this topic comes up, or if people wonder about that, or even if you wonder about that in housing today. You know, ICE Mortgage Monitor report said equity growth has begun to moderate along with broader home prices in recent months. But that's still the largest volume of equity we've seen on record, adjusted for seasonality. The average homeowner has $319,000 of equity in their home, of which $207,000 could be borrowed against while still maintaining a 20% equity position. So, you know, the strength of the homeowner relative to equity is tremendous. The strength of the homeowner kind of below the surface stronger than it's ever been before. Rick Sharga said this: for a homeowner to in the early stages of foreclosure, that equity is going to help them avoid foreclosure, either by leveraging the equity to pay down past due mortgage bills, or by selling their property in order to protect the equity they otherwise lose at the auction. So I mentioned we're going to dip our toe into what's going on with delinquencies and ultimately with foreclosures. The reason for that is, you know, we see this tremendous amount of equity, and it's playing out inside of delinquency and foreclosure rates. You know, if you take a look at this right here from the New York Fed, this is the percent of mortgages that are 90 plus days delinquent through the third quarter of this year. And you see right here below 1%. The tremendous rise up right here in the housing crisis, and we've steadily come down and stayed down over the last several years. Now, it was interesting. I had the chance to talk with a large servicer of mortgages in this country, and they generally are good in their portfolios when the default rate stays below 1%. They would say that's completely acceptable. That's healthy. You see, going back here in the early 2000s, bouncing around 1%, and not only, you know, being past due, but maybe could lead to a default or could lead to something like that. But the good news is, with a tremendous amount of equity, if someone were to go into foreclosure, they have the ability to put their home on the market, to pay a commission, and probably put a little bit of money in their pocket to get to the other side of the financial crisis they and their family are facing. Adam Data said this in October of 24, the U.S. housing market experienced a slight uptick in foreclosure activity with 30,784 properties filing for foreclosure, marking a 4% increase from the previous month, but an 11% decrease year over year. This nuanced trend shows foreclosures remain relatively low despite monthly rises. We go back to this slide. This is delinquencies. Right here, they're talking about foreclosure activity. This is the look at activity right here through the third quarter. And we can see activity on foreclosures remains very, very low. Again, I'm going to say due to the strength of the homeowner, due to the strength of a well-qualified borrower. Coming out of the financial crisis, that is the one thing that was given to us as a gift. Didn't maybe feel like a gift along the way, but it became harder to qualify for a home loan. And these well-qualified borrowers that are intent on not misusing their equity have produced a very, very strong homeowner in the sense of sort of the balance sheet, if you will, of a homeowner. And so while foreclosures spiked up in the housing crisis, they've come down and stayed down in the post-crisis. A lot of people worried that during COVID right here, there was obviously forbearance and a moratorium on foreclosures, that once we came out of that, we'd be in serious problem. But certainly hasn't proven to be true because of all the things that we just talked about. So we'll continue to watch that. But as we wrap up the year, I think you can be strong in your position that, at foreclosures, we're not going to see a wave of those and a flood of those coming back into the market. Those that are maybe on the sidelines saying, hey, I want to pick up a bunch of foreclosures, not going to happen. Are there people that are going to be foreclosed upon? Certainly that's a truth in our business. We don't wish it upon anyone. But the good news is most homeowners have equity in their homes and could sell and could do something that would allow them to then sell the house if they did get in financial trouble going forward. I want to sort of shift gears and talk for just a minute about expired listings. I think this will be a bigger and bigger issue for folks coming up, for agents and for homeowners that maybe had the dream of selling their home in the coming weeks. The number one day on the calendar that more listings expire than any other day is December 31st. And, I believe this year we will see more listings expire on December 31st than any other day. As a matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do a webinar with RedX and Curtis Finn. If you know Curtis and RedX, they do a phenomenal job on expired listings, FSBOs, all the things, the lists that agents buy. And they've got phenomenal data on what happens to a listing once it expires and what goes forward. So be on the lookout for that and register for that webinar. But the reason that I believe expired listings are going to be sort of a bigger thing this year than they've been in the last year or two is for a couple of reasons. I'll go into those right here. First, days on market has sort of steadily risen over the last couple of years. This is median days on market in October. You see 43, 50, 50, 58 from 21, 22, 23, and 24. We know, no doubt, across the country, properties are staying on the market longer due to a number of issues. The primary issue being the rise in mortgage rates and the lack of affordability across the country, where people have said, you know what, it's gotten too expensive for us to buy a home. And we're going to need to pause our search. That's led to inventory rising. This is a look at active listings each October, going back to 21, 22, 23. And there's more available inventory on the market, which ultimately for somebody that's looking to buy a home is a good thing. We don't want to forget that. But if you take the days on market is rising, you take inventory is rising. And oh, by the way, the third component here, sales are down. This is a look at existing home sales going back to 2021. You see sort of this deceleration in the market. You see things slowing down. And matter of fact, kind of hovering around, existing home sales, high threes, low fours, low rate of purchase across the country. And all of this sort of adds up to this equation of days on market up, inventory up, sales down equals expired listings. And I think being prepared to have conversations either right now with a listing that's going to expire or next month with another listing is going to be key. That is going to be a big, big piece of business. One of the things that we'll do on the webinar is Curtis is going to break down just exactly what the opportunity is from a commission volume. And I'll tell you this, I saw it before, it's huge. It is huge across the country. Because if you think about an expired listing, the seller has four options. One, they can relist with their current agent. I'm telling you, if you're listening to this monthly market report right now, I would have that conversation sooner rather than later about what needs to happen with that listing. Maybe it's a price adjustment. Maybe it's something to do with the accessibility or the staging of the home. Whatever the case is, it's time to have an honest conversation, because if not, the listing is going to expire. Maybe somebody else picks up that listing. I don't know. Second, they can relist with a new agent, which happens, right? If you're approaching an expired listing, that's what they're going to be talking about. Here's how I want one of your listings. Here's how I can get the home sold, right? And they have no shame in being able to have a direct conversation with them. Third, the individual or family could take the home off the market and just say, hey, we're out, right? We don't want to do it. And my coaching there would be to always bring them back to what caused you to want to sell the home to begin with. And ultimately, and I'm going to get into this in just a minute, in FSBOs, they could list the home for sale by owner. They can say, you know what, not going to use an agent, not going to go down that road. I'm just going to list it for sale on my own. I think I can sell it. I think I know what I'm doing. And we can have a conversation with them about that. But no doubt, if we look at the dynamics in the market, it leads to more expired listings. Understanding what the options are is going to be key. There are 3 steps, I believe, and we've got an e-guide built around this to winning an expired listing. And I think if you understand these, you will win more expired listings. First, you have to understand the seller's psychology, the rational, easy for me to say, the rationalization, reaction formation, and the displacement. That's the rationalization is, hey, we didn't want to sell the home anyways. You know what? We kind of, this is fine. This is what was supposed to happen. The reaction formation is, as you go through that, sort of going, well, we're better off anyways, right? Well, we're better off in not doing it. And displacement is maybe even looking at, you as the problem, right? Or being able to say, hey, if we would have done this or we would have done that, sort of hindsight's 2020 as we rationalize why this happened. Step 2, you have to understand the factors that could have prevented the home from selling. Maybe it's access. Maybe it's, some sort of staging or exterior issue, or maybe it's price. I believe price is going to be critically important with expired listings going into the first quarter of next year. Certainly mortgage rates are at a point that have slowed down the market. A lot of questions about that going forward, but I think price is going to be something that you're going to have to pay more attention to as we go through this. And 3, again, understanding what their 4 options are. So if I understand their psychology, I can sort of break down and have an honest conversation about what it could have prevented the home from selling. Then I can talk to them about which direction you want to go. Again, I can't underscore this enough. Be on the lookout for this webinar with RedX so you have the information you need to go after these expired listings. But, one of the things we talked about were FSBOs. And I think the FSBO information right now is very interesting relative to maybe even a conversation you're having with somebody who's thinking about selling their home. First of all, 90% of sellers sold with the assistance of a real estate agent, up from 89% last year, and only 6% were FSBO sales. The share of FSBO sellers was historically low. This is what this looks like from NAR, going all the way back to the 80s to last year. You see like everything kind of coming through here. Slowly, the percentage of FSBOs has gone down across the country. And I think this is something that we need to get out there and show the value that we bring to the transaction, so that people sort of, think about that as they're thinking about, do we want to sell our home on our own? NAR also came up with, the fact that of 6% of the recent sales that were FSBOs, 4% of them knew the buyers, right? So they already had a buyer and they're like, we're just going to sell it on our own. For 38% of all FSBO sellers, the main reason to sell via FSBO was because they sold to a relative, friend, or a neighbor. So what you're seeing right here is people that sold already had some sort of, relationship with who they were going to sell to. And it was kind of a foregone conclusion of what they were going to do. Most important reasons for selling as a FSBO: again, sold it to a neighbor or relative, didn't want to pay a commission, right? That's certainly gotten a lot more airtime this year. Buyer contacted the seller directly, didn't want to deal with an agent. Seller has a license, and you see those right there. But there are definitely reasons that people FSBO. And I think some of these things lead to what becomes most difficult if you're going to sell by FSBO. 70% getting the price right. I said price is going to be critically important. 13% said selling within the length of time, understanding the paperwork, preparing the home, having enough time to devote to all aspects of it. There are very real issues if you're going to sell by FSBO. The reason I'm bringing all this up is I believe as we wrap up this year, expired listings, which will in some cases lead to FSBOs, but expired listings will become a bigger issue. Price will become a bigger issue. Foreclosure is not an issue. Not that the train's not coming. And so we need to let people know that. And that's a good thing for the real estate market overall as we wrap up 2024. But, as we wrap up 2024, let's maybe take some time and turn to look ahead to 2025. And I like this image right here because it gives us 23 and 24, sort of in the rear view purview right here, and 2025 ahead. And 2023 and 2024 have been tough, slower years in real estate comparatively to maybe 2020, 21, 22. Saw the rise in mortgage rates. That impacting affordability becoming a challenge for people. And right now where we sit, I want to say this, and I hope you hear it and can sort of internalize it. We are in sort of the dead of winter in real estate. We're in the dead of winter right now where projections are being updated, forecasts are being updated, and there's a lot of uncertainty, right? Coming out of the election last month, people are going, okay, what's ahead? What's going to be, sort of coming around the bend. And it's caused a lot of people to question what they think about next year. But my message to you is, who do you want to be in all of that? Who do you want to be? Be the one that's intent on saying, this is what I see going forward. Now, I'm going to give you the projections right now. And I'm also going to tell you what I think about those, although my opinion is not worth any more than anybody else on the monthly market report right now. But have an opinion about what you believe going forward. Rick Sharga said this: I don't expect to see a meaningful increase in the supply of existing homes for sale until mortgage rates are back down in the low 5% range. Gosh, that seems like a long ways away from Rick. I think the world of Rick and trust him. And I think what he's talking about here is you're not going to see this mass sort of display of folks bringing their home to market until we see much better mortgage rates. And I would agree with that, but I do think you'll see an improvement of inventory. I do think you will see people put their homes on the market despite maybe not being in as aggressive of a drop in rates as what we thought maybe a couple of months ago. What are forecasters projecting? Well, right here, these are our mortgage rate projections as of the 4th of December. You see this fourth quarter of this year through the fourth quarter of next year, Fannie, MBA, Wells Fargo, the average of all three, and has them by the end of next year getting down below 6.33%. Call that 6.25%. I think right now where we stand, if you want to see this in a graphic, this is what this looks graphically. So rise up in rates, sort of plateauing over the last year. A couple of things that I think we go back to this sort of scenario right here. My opinion is I think we might beat by the end of next year 6.33. We dip our toe in the fives. I certainly think that's possible. I think again some of this hysteria and projection and sort of panic and paralyzation, maybe the more accurate word, of what's ahead, I think that will die down, and I think we will see a better mortgage. I do believe that. Do I think we'll see rates that'll blow the doors off? I don't think that. I think we will still be in a situation where sort of the 6%, maybe high fives, will become the new normal in real estate, in the financing rate to go out and obtain a home. And now, here's what this sort of portends: is there is a buying opportunity right now. A lot of people have said, "Hey, we'll wait." We talk post-election, people are going to wait, right? Post, mortgage rates and things sort of being questionable, we'll wait. And so, being able to understand that, I think, is going to be key. Freddie Mac said this: lower mortgage rates are expected to boost the housing market, but the lift will be modest given continued tightness in the existing inventory and home buyers staying on the sidelines, expecting further rate declines. What do I think? I think we'll beat that projection by the end of the year. Next year, we'll have to wait and see. But no doubt, as we look out and look ahead in this market, we should be in a better interest rate, mortgage rate environment next year, which will mean good things for those buying homes. I believe it'll bring more business into the market. As well, we should see homes continue to rise in price, the rate of appreciation. This is a look at 16 forecasters that say, okay, what's going to happen in the U.S. housing market next year relative to price? The majority of these from here to here in the 3 to 4% range, 2.9 to 4.9. I'm going to call that 3 to 4%. The average of all of these 3% right here, as you look across there, very normal, very healthy price appreciation for residential real estate. Now, that's the national outlook. There will be markets that are outlier markets that may plateau or even see a decrease in pricing, no doubt about that. And maybe some markets that are hotter than this. But nationally, we see a very healthy real estate market. And by the way, if we're honest with ourselves, that is a good thing. That is a good thing for anybody thinking about buying, selling, the strength of housing going forward. It's something that we all want to happen. The other thing that I clearly see from forecasters is the total home sales is forecasted to rise. The projected new home and existing home sales going into next year, about 5.1 million. Now, let me back up for a second here. This is new homes and existing homes, 5.1 million. Normally, when you hear home sales, they talk about existing home sales. We've added a new construction to this. The peak of the market was 2021 right here. And then we sort of come down over the last couple of years and we'll come back up. I think we'll look at 2024 as being the valley of home sales, as being the valley of transactions, and start to work our way out of it. I've mentioned this before in the election information that we produced as Keeping Current Matters. And, typically the first year of a 4-year election cycle is the best year for housing for an incoming president. I do believe we will continue to get better over the next 4 years in the number of transactions in this country of residential real estate. The other thing, Odetta Cushy said this, looking ahead to 2025, my baseline expectation is that single-family home construction is poised to steadily increase, bolstered by modest declines in financing costs for builders and buyers, and by the scarcity of existing homes due to the mortgage rate lock-in effect. So what do I see? I see mortgage rates as being in a better scenario. I see prices rising, but at a more normal rate. I see home sales forecasted to rise. That's a good thing. And builders are trying to build them as fast as they can. So I hope that gives you a look around the corner for 2025 as we wrap up this year. And always so grateful for everybody that listens to the monthly market report. As we wrap up here, I want to say one thing. Who do you want to be in all of this? Do you want to be the person that sort of falls prey to many of the forecasts and the dead of winter right now? Or do you want to be the one that says, this is my plan going forward? I was on a group call with some people that were KCM members. And this idea I want to put in your head, spending just an hour a week focused on how you're going to be the expert, how you're going to get things out on social, how you're going to get things out to your sphere of influence, how you're going to get things out to those that you're working with, I believe will have a dramatic impact on your business in the coming year. and staying connected to the monthly market report, staying connected to all the education that we give you as a KCM member, I know will be key to that. So as we wrap up 2024, my hope is that you have a wonderful wrap to this year and holiday season, wonderful new year, and can't wait to be back with you in January in 2025. Take care.
All right. Any takeaways? Diana, you did an awesome job in the chat here, kind of putting your thoughts as he was talking. Also, if you didn't see in the chat, I'll actually give you one link. Here you go. This is all the slides for December, as well as that expired booklet that he talked about. So this is one link. You don't have to grab both of those, but that one link has both of it in there. Plus, I think it's got like September, October, November, also the slides. So I just started putting it in one folder. So if you save that link to that folder, you'll always have the slides. So that's there. And then Ani or Sasha will also put it on the Facebook group and in Real Estate B School if you're part of those. But any takeaways, anything that you want to share that you got from this?
Well, it sounds like we continuously gonna see similar interest rates, which as you remember in 2022, we heard, oh, by the end of the year, or in 2023, or in 2024, or one election. And I gotta say, we have to be advisors and to say we cannot predict the future, but this is what potentially
right.
how it can play out, because it's a big decision, can put people in trouble if
Yes.
they get the information. Overly optimistic, you can refinance and then the values go down. In Austin, values went down tremendously. I see price increase moderately, but mostly because new construction and pushing more expensive homes, but they buy down rates. And people like those homes and they see the payment being the same as resale, but much less of a home and not as nice. So when you see built out something older, those prices are not going down, going up, but rather down. So we need to understand which one is resale, which one is new construction.
Yeah.
That can skew the numbers in a way and paint the picture a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's right. And a couple months ago, I can't remember, maybe you guys remember what month it was. They really talked about new construction and that change and kind of had broken it out. It might have been October, actually. I can't remember, but those slides are in that folder. But they did exactly what you said, Diana, break that down a little bit better so you could kind of see what is what. But I love that you know your local statistics that well. And I think that's important. We talked about that last month. I think it was last month. I don't know. Everything's moving together. We talked about it before where somebody was doing a monthly market report they did it on social and then sent it out to their clients, or did a recording and sent it out. And like, that's really good. So if you're on this call watching, the monthly market report, those are macro statistics, which you can see. Not even all the economists agree on how much houses have appreciated or not. But you can give like the last little comment that he made, like mortgage is a better scenario this year. Home sales are going up and new construction's building as fast as they can. You can give that little scenario and then talk about your local stats really easy. And like he said, you're getting the information out to people so they look to you as the expert. And I think that's really going to be even more important in 2025 because there's so much noise out there that if you can just show up consistently as the person who knows their numbers, like we have no doubt that Diana knows her numbers or not, right? She knew exactly what was happening in her local market. And if you don't, that's okay. Start tracking it, right? So you understand. Or if your MLS sends out a report, ours does, I never find it that super helpful. It's okay. But if you know exactly your stats or what you want to pull from those stats, just pick a couple and do a quick video on it and send it out. Or if you're not a video person, then write a little, put it into ChatGPT, have it build for you an email, send it out. And even if you committed to doing that every time after this call before Friday, and just put it on your calendar as recurring, that would be a great touch base for everybody in your CRM, everybody. Or again, do it on social. Or I see JR's on this call and he would always do that on a video and send it out. So however you want to do it, you could do it YouTube, whatever you want to, just make it easy for you to be consistent at it. You're going to show up as the expert. And that's what we want, right? We are spending the time to know this stuff, and we do, but sometimes there's so much information coming at us. It's hard to, give a clear, concise answer when people say, "What's the market like?" You're like, "Well, why are you asking?" And they're like, "I don't know. I just wanted a quick, how's the market?" So when you understand these stats or know these stats, even if you said one or two things based on what they're looking for or what, you're going to come off as different than everybody else. Because a lot of people just don't know their numbers that well. So, yeah, go ahead, Diana. You're good.
There is another thing. You can have a better conversation with sellers because they still under impression of those years when buyers were chasing, and now how the time plays out, because the market that trending down by waiting and not proactively improving, adjusting the price, they can lose more on waiting versus adjusting the price.
That's right.
And closing.
Exactly. Yeah. And coming to your appointments with those stats instead of just showing. Yeah, really good. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add? Nothing else? Ready for the holidays? I hope you are. I hope you all are super blessed over the holidays. You get to see family, you get to experience some joy, some happiness. This is our last call of 2024. We won't have a call the next 2 weeks. So I'm honored that I got to do it with you guys. And we're going to hit the ground running in 2025. So be ready, get some rest. Don't be drinking too much over the holidays. You got to be fresh, ready to go for 2025. But I also hope you take time to enjoy it. And if it is a season where it just doesn't feel as joyous, I was having a conversation with someone else today, and I said, I actually pulled out my 5-minute journal. If you guys haven't heard of that, look it up on Amazon. But it's basically like takes 5 minutes and you write 3 things you're thankful, or 5 things you're thankful for. I do 2 of them, so I can't remember if it's 3 or 5. But anywho, write that down. And it really just kind of helps you change your perspective, because people control their own emotions, but sometimes they're not great at controlling them and they're like dumping it all on you. So you have to kind of keep this attitude of, I control my own emotions and I'm choosing joy. Even if it doesn't feel like it, I'm still going to choose it. So that's my wish for you guys. And I hope you have an amazing holiday and a happy new year. And we're going to crush 2025 because we've put in the work in 2024. Love you all. I wish you the best, and I will see you next year. Bye.